Hello, friends. I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. And today we're bringing you an igniting breathwork practice in partnership with our friends at Yoga on the Browsers. So we'll open up with a period of instructions. We'll go through between 20 and 25 minutes of breath practice. Then I will guide you through a liberation themed heart opening meditation. What I think you'll need to be safe and enjoy your practice today, a comfortable place to lay down. So I'd recommend against a bed, although if a bed is your best option, I'd rather you use a bed and do the practice than not use the bed and not do the practice. But a yoga mat on the floor, a comfortable carpeted position on the floor, even like you'll see behind me for my seated position, I've got a folded blanket and a bolster that I'll use to facilitate the practice, but I'm also going to be laying down on to demonstrate. So any kind of surface like that will work well. So press pause on this recording, gather up the materials that you'll need to have a safe and enjoyable experience, and we'll get started here in just a moment. All right, we're going to get started. So Laura, have you ever done a breathwork session like this before? Okay, I was thinking when we talked about it after a class one day, you'd said that that was the case. What have you heard about these sessions? Anything? It's a biased opinion for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like people experience lots of different things from this technique. And even individual people, I breathe some of the same people 5 or 6 times, and like each time is a little bit different. So I think it depends on what we're carrying with us here and what else is going on in our lives and how safe we feel in the moment and in the setting. So like with breath, one of the things that I think about breath work is it's our birthright as human beings. We are taught outside of yoga and very like sometimes law enforcement, so only special operations military. We're not really taught how to use it as a tool. And when we are, it's really limited in applications. One thing that I would say, constructive criticism for the yoga community is we often as yoga teachers, we share breath practices with people, and then we give them no context about what it does, how to use it, like what kind of applications it has in their lives. So my best example, did I tell you the story about my police officer situation before? Okay, so I was a state police officer for 9 years, and probably 6 of those years I was a yogi. I had an established, consistent yoga practice. And I worked really weird shifts, so I needed to stay up and be sharp until midnight, 1 or 2 a.m., make sure that I could stay sharp, protect myself, protect other people. So I did that chemically. I did that with coffee. So I was often drinking 6 or 8 cups. I was also an administrator. I was a state park superintendent. So often in the office at 8 o'clock in the morning, taking care of administrative stuff and out until late at night. So I drank 6 or 8 cups of coffee a day for years. When I left state service, my central nervous system was completely fried. I had no idea how bad it was. So like I'd stop drinking coffee at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and it would take me hours to wind down. And I never really slept well, not for years. At the same time, I had probably by the time I left state service, taken 6 or 7 classes. Have you ever done Kapalabhati breath? It's an upregulating breath technique. It's like drinking a cup of coffee. I almost never drink coffee anymore based on the experience I just shared with you. If I ever go overboard and I have more than 1 cup, I get tinnitus. I get ringing in my ears. When I finish, I have Kapalabhati breath work. I do it every morning as a part of my self-care practice. After 3 rounds of 100 sets of Kapalabhati breath, tinnitus, ringing in my ears. So it's a central nervous system up leveling. That's what the tinnitus is responding to. So yeah. So like if somebody introduces a breath to you, you don't have to do this. This is my opinion. It's my 2 cents, and it's what I'm going to do in my practice. 2 intelligent questions that I think always make sense to ask. One is, what's the impact and the effect that I can expect from this on my central nervous system? And the second is, how can I apply this as a tool to make my life better? And we're given so much media and we're offered so much. If something doesn't have If it's not a tool that can tangibly benefit my life, I don't worry about it, not even the first time, because I don't have time for that. Okay, you're in the same boat, it sounds like. Ooh, special occasions. Yeah. Yeah, I'm using that mud water is a coffee substitute, but it's made primarily from mushrooms and some other herbs. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds amazing. And good for digestion too, right? Okay. Yeah, yeah. Ginger and turmeric are my twin patron saints now. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. We'll have to talk about herbalism at some point too. I have an interest in maybe a proposal for you for a way that you can help support one of my programs on a paid basis if you're interested. Um, so with those two questions, like let me answer those for this breath technique first. So this breath practice is one really simple, really specific technique with like really one application. The outcomes are very varied and broad, but one application. This is not a sleepy time breath. This is upregulating of the central nervous system. So it triggers a sympathetic nervous system response. So expect increased pulse rate, increased bodily temperature. Um, Depending on, we'll do a down regulating breath before we get started too. I don't think we're hours from bedtime for most people. I don't think this will affect your sleep, but if it does, I'll give you another breath practice to help down regulate things a little bit. But it's also vasoconstricting, and that'll come into play. So it makes all the blood vessels smaller. So it increases blood pressure is another outcome. This is all temporary. This all passes. But these are some things that it can do. Upregulating the central nervous system. How to apply it in your life? For me, like I'm getting better. Like time has worn off enough of the rough edges that I'm now more likely to be able to allow myself to really feel my feelings. Um, but there are times where it's just either not convenient or it doesn't feel safe to do that. And I end up carrying around things that are not healthy for me to carry out. So when I need a deep emotional release, um, this breath practice is a technique that I would use. And that's the most common outcome that I hear. I was attracted to this. I read Glennon Doyle at the time, Glennon Doyle Melton's Love Warrior. And she describes this experience in that story about going to a transformational breath practice and encountering divine consciousnust. I was like, that's what I want. I'm in for that. So that's not been my experience, but my experience has almost always been pretty powerful, and it's been really good. I have led this session with people where they got crickets. They got almost nothing during the session. Yeah, it does. So like that is a possible outcome too. One of those people have since come back to me and said, hey, you need to hear about the rest of my day that followed that breath session, and had some remarkable things to share. This is also a person who I like and respect very much, but really works really hard to please me. So I take it with a little bit with a grain of salt, and like hopefully she got something good with the time that we spent together in the practice, but that's possible. People have told me before, I had 2 sessions in a row where people described having this vision at the end that was tantamount to ancestral healing. So feeling themselves sitting there with themselves as a child, their child, and a grandparent or great grandparents twice in a row. Um, it is this powerful. So I share this with you, Laura, because when we start, I'll ask you to set an intention. And when you set an intention, what's that expression? It's better to shoot for the sun than to hit a moon than shoot for the moon and hit a mud puddle. Ask for what you want. Ask for what you want. And maybe you won't get that outcome, but maybe it'll be something really beautiful and unexpected instead. So that's what to expect. What's the impact on the central nervous system? That's how do you apply this as a tool to make your life better? As far as like the experience itself, I will, once we finish instructions, I'll have you breathe for between 20 and 25 minutes. I will cue you for a primal scream, which it sounds crazy when I tell you that. And when the two of us scream in this room, it's going to sound really crazy, but it's an amazing release. It feels really good. And I'll tell you more about that as we go. And then I'll guide you through a liberation themed heart opening meditation. So what to expect nuts and bolts during the practice. If you visualize a triangle, on one end we have physical effects, mental and emotional. On the physical side, because this technique is vasoconstricting, the first thing that I typically notice is tingling. So I notice tingling in my skin of my hands, my arms, my face. Not my experience, but I've had 3 or 4 people tell me specifically the tip of their nose tingles. Janet has said the tip of her nose tingles. Yeah, like really consistently every time she does the practice. So you'll notice that. There's a phenomenon, it's called tetany. It's called tetany. And where the blood vessels constrict to the point that the joints can become locked up. So the hands can either be like lobster claws, or last session that I led, people's hands were kind of extended and locked up. It sometimes happens with people's jaws too. If it comes up, it's temporary. It won't last. When we stop the technique at the end, it will go away. And most of the time it's preventable in the practice. When I tell you about the technique, the exhale is a short and relaxed, just letting the breath fall out. Where I've seen this happen most often, and when I've had it happen to me, is when people are too aggressive with the exhale. That is tetany, but just a soft usually is a prescription for not having that tetany. So those are some things to expect in the body. Eventually, tingling in the legs, tingling in the feet. At the end of the experience, like a full body pulsation. Have you ever done a hand chakra opening? Okay, we'll try one right here, and I'll tell you, no expectation. Whatever your emotional response to this practice or anything within this breath practice is fine, but sometimes this is a really good introduction. So if you take your forearms parallel to the earth, have your left palm face the sky, your right palm face the earth. Now close into closed fists, both hands, release, and then do that 15 more times tightly and as fast as you can. So in yoga, when we give instructions, a lot of times we give it as metaphor, and we intend it as metaphor. So in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you when we're done with this to do something that sounds like I'm speaking in metaphor, but I mean it really literally. All right, so after 15 times, come to an apparent pause, flip the hands, same thing, close and release 15 times, as fast as you can. And then when we stop, I'll ask you to draw your hands, palms facing each other in front of your chest, almost close enough that your thumbs touch your chest. Hands maybe 6 or 8 inches apart. You could close down your eyes. You can keep them open with a soft gaze. And then start to slowly draw your hands together. And what I'm going to ask you to feel for here is energy flowing between the hands. And again, that sounds like metaphor, but I mean it very literally in a really tangible way. So I often have people tell me I feel nothing, but for a lot of people, they can feel a tangible flow of energy. Can you feel it? Okay, so that pulsation of the energy in between your hands is crazy, right? Full body, much more powerful. Now, when we do this, I've done this, I do this exercise often enough. I think of it, this is a really crude metaphor, but it's like a nicotine hit. When I was a smoker, when I dip snuff, like if you do it often enough, you don't get the same hit, is what I experienced. I was feeling it today, but it's gone already. This full body pulsation that I'm talking about, if that's your experience today, will last 10 or 15 minutes. I experiment sometimes with my hands, the same as we did in the heart. And like I can take my hands apart as far as I want. And if you kept breathing for it, you could probably make it last about as long as you want it to. So that's physically what to expect. Now, mentally, this is really confronting of the ego. The phenomenon, like that nasty voice in our head that tells us, you're too old, you're too young, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you're too fat, you're too skinny, whatever version of I am not enough that voice tells us, ego driven, all takes place in the prefrontal cortex. This breath work, and I don't understand the physiology behind it, but it takes the consciousness out of the prefrontal cortex and it puts it into a really primitive part of the brain in the brain stem. So that hypofrontality, that ego driven, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you're too old, you're too young, it gets shut down. It stops. It stops. And for some people, particularly if they don't have a meditation practice, that's the first reprieve they've ever had from that. And that's powerful to know that we can live without that happening, running in the background. That script all the time is powerful. Because of that, this breath technology is really confronting for the ego, and the ego wants to stay in charge. Now, your ego wants to protect you, but she just does it in really dysfunctional ways, in the same way that mine does. These survival tools that we needed at some point in our life, we evolved, the survival tools didn't. Now they hurt us all the time. This is one of those tools, right? But because the ego doesn't, what I call the lawyers of the mind, they will play tricks on you. And that might look like strange thoughts. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I'm out. This is scary. This is weird. It might look like falling asleep. When I'm breathing people, it doesn't happen often that people fall asleep. My trainer, John Paul Creamy, talked about it. In the first 8 or 10 sessions I did, I was like, people don't fall asleep from this. And then I had somebody fall asleep. So what I do, if you fall asleep today, it's okay. It's okay. I will wake you up twice and pull you back into the technique. If you fall asleep a third time, my assumption is that you need sleep more than you need breath work. So that's what I'll do. And sometimes it is fatigue, but sometimes it's the ego. That's the ego's best tool. I've seen it come out as laughter. Like somebody starts laughing uncontrollably. They can't do the technique because they can't stop themselves from laughing. There's nothing funny. It's the ego. This is the best tool the ego can think of to prevent that shutdown from happening. So when it happens, like if you have that experience, and I think on some level you may notice something like that, it's super normal. It's super normal. It happens a lot, and you know it's coming. So now you can start to plan ahead about like technique. It's 3 steps. You're going to hear me say this 3 steps over and over. And it's repetitive, it's monotonous, and it is freaking powerful. So that's physically, that's mentally, emotionally. We talked about deep emotional release, maybe connection with divine consciousness, not my experience, but knowing that it's out there inspires me and makes me want to keep breathing. Yeah, ancestral healing. It's not been my experience. Knowing that's a possibility keeps me coming back to my mat to breathe again. With the emotional release, I can't tell you if you should feel safe, right? That's got to come from you. I don't know what the answer to that is for you. I know whatever the answer is, it's okay. It's okay. But I've had people who've done this breath technique with me before that have said things like, hey, I felt the emotions come up. It was like my body wanted to cry, but I just couldn't let it. That's okay. That's okay. But I would encourage you, like every 3rd time I do this technique, I have what I call a category 3 sobbing event. And it's so cleansing. It's so cleansing to let that crap go, to let it go. So like if you want tissues, we can take a little break before we start the technique, grab tissues. I'm not going to offer you tissues during the practice because I don't know if you ever watched Chappelle's show. Dave Chappelle had this sketch with the wrap it up box. If people were talking too long, it like had increasing cinematic music until they got the hint that they should be quiet. I feel like somebody handing us tissues when we're crying is the wrap it up box, right? And I don't want, if that happens for you today, I don't want you to wrap it up. I want you to lean into it and let it rip through you. Touch can enhance the practice. We can do this 1 of 2 ways. We can place a sandbag on your belly, or if it's safe and comfortable for you, I may touch you. It might be a total of 4 or 5 times during the practice. More than that with just the 2 of us is going to be too much. But if you consent to yes, and I will not touch you without your consent, 1 hand will be on the shoulder. It'll be like a manicure hand, other hand on your belly. So a professional yoga teacher touch. There's no reason for me to be touching you anywhere besides on your shoulder and on your belly. But I'll ask before I do that. So that brings us to the technique. Do you want to take a break before we get started and move into the next section? Are you ready to get going? Okay. So the technique is really simple. It's a 2-part inhale, 1-part exhale. So it's a 3-part breath. It's a constant, continuous breath. So no pauses at the top or the bottom. That does remind me one other physical thing to expect. As yogis, we're trained to breathe through our nose. And mouth breathing, as a matter of course, is super unhealthy. It kills off the nitrous oxide. It affects our intellect. It does all these things. This is an open mouth breath. So this is the only time that I would ask you to inhale and exhale through your mouth, but it does make a difference for this practice. Because of that, your mouth will get dry. So the second or third time I led one of these sessions, I had somebody say afterwards, I was like, how was that for you? Was that okay? So it was okay, except for one thing. Tell me about that. What was the one thing? I said, my mouth got really dry. It's like, well, did you swallow? They said, well, I couldn't swallow. I said, why couldn't you swallow? You said constant continuous, no pauses, no interruptions. They follow my instruction literally. What I mean is I don't want pauses or interruptions at the top and the bottom as a matter of course. If you need to swallow, if you need to sneeze, if you need to yawn, do what you need to do to take care of yourself first, and then just come back to the technique. So open mouth breath. So 80% inhale through an open mouth, a big wide open mouth into the belly. Let the belly balloon out, 20% in the chest. And then let the exhale, let it just relax and fall out. So it's a short exhale. Belly, chest, exhale falls out. So I'll do more of a circuit in a minute, but one of the ways that I look at this, like sometimes people, especially men, like I do this myself a lot, but I see this more, not all with male clients, but more often with male clients, we're too aggressive with the exhale. So it's, and it's not sustainable. That's where the technique is going to come in. So the metaphor, the best metaphor I can think of, if you think of an archer, she notches an arrow, 80% into the belly, 20% in the heart. If she pushes the arrow is going to fly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so 20 or 80, 20, and then just release it, let go. So it's a short exhale. When you breathe into the chest, the back arches very frequently. It would almost be weird. It would be weird if your mouth didn't get dry during this technique, and it would be a little bit weird if the chest didn't arch a little bit. As long as it's pain-free, it's fine. So what it might look like is something like this. For 25 minutes. Belly, chest, repeat. Yeah, it is. It's a really simple technique. A question that people ask sometimes that I think is a good question. The first breath session that I did like this, I went to a transformational breath session, and I asked, can I do this on my own? Do I have to pay $50 and come to a session every time? It's nobody's expectation or hope that you pay someone else for a breathwork session for the rest of your life if this practice speaks to you today. I think 10 or 12 practices under somebody else's supervision, and then a little bit of communication about what to do. I would set a timer, like when I'm breathing by myself, I set a timer for myself. Call a friend or your spouse or a child and say, check on me in an hour. But I think other than that, this can be a path toward a practice that you can self-facilitate and do safely on your own. Intention might be just to release some stress, to get rid of some stress and let some things go. That's fine. It's a fine intention. It might be if we've been carrying something heavy for a long time, shame, fear, anger, doubt, grief. It might be to let that go. Or it might be if there's something aspirational that you've been wanting to bring on for a long time, hope, joy, whatever that might be a good intention. When we get to the primal scream, this will be 20 or 25 minutes into the breathwork session. I'm going to give you a minute's notice. I'm going to ask you to continue the technique, and then I'll give you a 10-second lead so you can take a big, life-affirming, juicy inhale, and then I'll scream with you, but we'll rip loose this blood-curdling scream. And particularly if your intention is to let something go, I'd like you to visualize whatever you're letting go exiting out your mouth with your breath, leaving the body. And I think that's about it. That's about it. After the primal scream, no more technique. come back to a comfortable, natural breath. And I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes to sit with your experience. Then I'll guide you through a heart opening meditation. And then I'll give you another probably 10 minutes. If you get that deep full body chakra pulsation, I need to tell you another story about that too. That energy that's flowing through you, there's no expectation you do anything with that. Just for now, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it and know that that's possible. We did one of the free sessions, the other pop-up sessions we did at Yoga on the Brazos a while back. We had someone come in for that session. She'd never done this before either. She laughed the first 10 minutes. I was like, she's going to get nothing from this. Her ego was confronted and she couldn't stop laughing. She got back into the technique, had a really powerful experience and deep emotional release. Left here for a Reiki session. Her Reiki healer, who's worked with her many times before, said, I have no idea what you did, and please don't tell me. Your chakras are all open and aligned right now, right? So that's not permanent, right? Because our chakras, when they get out of alignment, it's behavioral based, and until we change the behavior, that it's going to stay out of alignment. But this, like, one theory that I have based on this, and other than that one exchange, I have nothing really to back this up other than that full body pulsation of my body, is this at least temporarily aligns the chakra and has the energy flowing from root to crown and back. So that's what to expect. Yeah. Any questions? I just gave you a whole bunch of information. Yeah, I want you to know what to expect, what you're getting into. Okay. Make your way into a comfortable position, laying down, probably on your back. You could use the bolster to support your knees. You could not use a bolster. You can cover your eyes. You can not cover your eyes. The breath initially, keep breathing as normal, and we'll do a grounding exercise before I start the technique for you. How are you feeling right now? What's your anxiety level? Okay. Sure, I can see that. Okay. Sometimes people are super nervous because this is not something we do on a regular basis. And the kind of conversation we just had is not the kind of conversation that people have casually at the supermarket or at the barbershop or what have you. So sometimes people are nervous. Sometimes people are really excited. I think, like, cautious optimism, like, if you know what you want to get out of this practice, I would set that as your intention and then just relax and let the universe do her part, and we'll see what happens. The cadence of the breath. Mine was fast. I like a faster cadence. So I used to think it had to be fast to have an effect. It does not. It does not. So it can be fast. It does not have to be. It can be slow. It does not have to be, but it should be constant and continuous. And again, that exhale, it's a short exhale, soft, let it just fall out. I'll get some music started as a background, and then I'll start you with a grounding. All right, drawing a deep inhale through your nose, and I'd like you to think about what's your favorite color. Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose, what's your favorite flavor? Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose, what's your favorite texture? Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose, what's your favorite food? Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose, what's your intention for this practice today? What is your hope of hopes that you get out of this? Exhale through your mouth. Now we're going to start the technique, big wide open mouth, taking an 80% inhale into your belly. Let it swell up like a balloon. Good. Now 20% in your chest, and let the exhale just fall out your mouth. That's it. Belly, chest, let it fall out. Belly, chest, release. belly, chest, release. That's it. Good. Good job on those belly breaths. Keep it up. Laura, may I touch you? One hand on your shoulder, one hand on your belly. Belly, even bigger. Good. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Good. Good job. Keep it up just like that. So you're going to have to work really hard for the first 15 or so minutes to have the kind of impact that you like. Right. And one thing, people think about breath work and they think this sleepy time, peaceful, relaxing experience. And some breath work can be like that, but that is not this practice. This is a physically rigorous practice. So your body will fatigue. Know that. And know that you can do this. You have everything you need to be successful with this. If you had weird thoughts pop into your mind, you knew that was going to happen, come back to your intention. What is it that you want to get out of this? And then it's just belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Short exhale, just let it fall out. Good, Laura. Good job. That's it. That's the technique. You're doing it. That's it. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Good job. Good. That's it. So I feel like this breath technique is like all of the most meaningful, important things in life. Most of them haven't come to me by accident. They haven't just fallen into my life, right? They followed a period of hard work and then just relaxing into not attaching to the outcome. So if you do this technique and you work hard for these 20 or 25 minutes, I think the impact that you get is going to be significant. But keep coming back to the attention. When it gets hard, and it will get hard, come back to your intention. Good, Laura. That's it. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. That's it. Good. Good on those belly breaths. Really good. That's it. Smooth, deliberate, perfect, Laura. Belly, chest, release. That's perfect technique. Good job. So you've been at this long enough now, you may start to feel some tingling in your hands. You may start to feel tingling in your arms, in your face. You may not. That's okay. In the lawyers of the mind, the ego may already have started confronting you. You knew that that was going to happen. Just come back to the technique. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Good job. Just like that. Keep it up. You're doing great. One hand on your shoulder, one hand on your belly. More in the belly. Good. Yep, good. Belly, chest, release. Good. Good job, Lord. Just like that. Keep it up. That's it, Laura, that's the technique. You got it. Belly, chest, release. The same three components over and over again. You're doing it. That's perfect. Keep it up. Belly, chest, release. Good. Belly, chest, release. Just like that, Laura. That is textbook. Great job. Keep it up, Laura. That's perfect. Belly, chest, release. So by now, I expect you're feeling tingling in your arms, your hands, your face, maybe in your legs. In the lawyers of the mind, they may have stopped speaking now, or they could be speaking really loudly. I've seen this happen either way. But you've been at this long enough now that you have skin in the game. When you start to physically fatigue, you may have already, likely you will before the session is over. Remember that this is leading you somewhere. This belly, chest, release through an open mouth, this technique over and over again is a pathway, and the path leads somewhere. Remember where you're heading. Come back to your intention. Keep breathing. That's my end. All good. Even bigger in your belly breaths. One hand on your shoulder. Good. Good job. And one hand on your belly. Belly, chest, release. Good, Laura. Keep it up. Belly, chest, release. Good job. Your technique looks really, really good. You're doing it. That is it. Good. Those belly breaths look amazing, Laura. That's perfect. That's exactly right. That's exactly the technique. Good. Good job. Good. Good job. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. That's it. Great job. Keep it up. You're doing it. Great job, Laura. So you've been at this long enough now. I expect you've got tingling from head to toe. And I also expect the signs of physical fatigue are beginning to set in. This is a demanding practice, and you got this. You can do it. But you've been at this long enough. Don't let your work, all the hard work you put in so far, be for naught. So keep up the technique. It's the same thing. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Good job. Keep it up. Keep it up. Come back to your intention. Remember your why. Again, this technique is a path. This path is leading you somewhere. That's it, Laura. That's it. You're doing it. That's it. That's perfect. Even bigger on your belly breath, even bigger. Yes, good, good job. Laura, that technique is flawless. Belly, chest, release. Good. Just like that. Keep going. You're doing great. Great technique, Laura. Great technique. Belly, chest, release. Good job. That's it. You got it. You're doing it. Good job. That clamping in your hands will go away. You knew that might happen. You got this. You're doing great. Hand on your shoulder, one hand on your belly. Good. Really good technique, Laura. Just like that. That's it. Great job. Keep it up. That's it. You're doing great. You're doing great. Great technique. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Very, very good. All right, we're about a minute away from our primal scream. So keep up with the technique for now. Belly, chest, release. I'll give you 10 seconds of lead time to take a deep breath. If your intention was to let something difficult go, when we scream, visualize that exiting through your mouth. And then after the primal scream, no more technique. All right, drawing a deep, deep, life affirming, juicy inhale. Hold it at the top and let that scream rip loose. Come back to a natural breath through your nose. Great job. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to sit with this, and then I'll guide you through a heart opening meditation. like you to start to shift your attention to your heart. And maybe start that instruction quite literally and visualize this multi-chambered organ that pumps this precious fluid through our body. So precious, we often refer to this as our life's blood. And I'd like you to start to shift your understanding of your heart to more of a metaphorical heart. So the heart is the seat of compassion, of love, and emotion. And your heart could have like a natural biological heart shape. It could have like a Valentine's Day heart shape, but it doesn't really matter. Just focus your attention there. And I'd like you to visualize a golden door on your heart. And right now that door is swung closed. Lift one hand, either hand up toward the stars. You can have some softness in the arm, you can have some softness in the fingers, but reach that hand up toward the heavens. And I'd like you to bring to your mind the memory of a time in your life where you stood on a threshold and it seemed like the whole rest of your life laid out in front of you. You had all this opportunity, all this hope, and everything looked amazing. That might have been getting off the school bus at the end of the day on the last day of school. It might have been when you graduated from high school or university. But think about who you were in that moment. Think about those circumstances, maybe who else was around you. And then gather that moment of hope and possibility in your lifted hand. Start to lower that hand down towards your heart. See the golden door opening and see that moment of hope and possibility re-entering your heart. Cover your heart with your hand. Cover that hand with your other hand. Lift the fingers of that same hand, that same arm up toward the stars. Now, I'd like you to think about a moment in your life where you felt stuck, and maybe you didn't have hope in that moment, and maybe it didn't seem like it was teeming with possibility. But there was someone in your life who supported you, who helped pull you through that moment. They gave you the metaphorical rope that opened up the possibility for hope, that opened up the possibility for your future, maybe even for the life that you have right now. Think about that moment. Think about who you were in that moment. Consider all the circumstances. Who is that person who helped you through that moment? And then gather that moment of being saved into your lifted hand. Start to lower your hand down towards your heart. See that golden door open. And watch that moment of salvation re-enter your heart. Cover your heart with your hand. Cover that hand with your other hand. Lift your hand, your fingers of your hand up toward the stars again. Now, I'd like you to bring to your mind a moment of another person in your life. Maybe it was a sister or a brother, maybe it was a spouse, maybe it was a dear friend, but they were stuck. They were hopeless. They felt like they had no possibility in front of them. They needed a rope, and you gave them that rope. Maybe that was a phone call. Maybe that was co-signing a loan. Maybe it was just being there as a compassionate, loving ear and friend. Who were you in that moment? Who was that other person? What were the circumstances in your life? And then gather that moment of saving a dear person in your life into your lifted hand. Start to lower your hand down towards your heart. See that golden door open. And that moment of you extending the rope re-enters your heart. Cover your heart with your hand. Cover your hand with that other hand. Now, one last time, float the fingers of your hand up toward the stars. And I'd like you to think about, bring to your mind the memory of a time where you felt stuck. But this time, the rope that was extended to you was one that you created yourself. Maybe you lost hope in that moment. Maybe it seemed like you didn't have a lot of possibility and you didn't know what to do, and you did it anyway. That is inside you. You self-rescued. Think about who you were in that moment. What were the circumstances in your life? And then gather that moment of being your own hero, of being your own salvation into your lifted hand. Lower that hand down towards your heart. See the golden door open one more time. That moment enters your heart. Cover your heart with your hand. Cover that hand with your other hand. Life is really hard. And there are moments when we lose our way and we lose our hope, and it seems like possibility and goodness can't exist in front of us. But you know that that's not true. You know that that's not true. You've had those moments where the whole life laid out ahead of you, everything was gilded in hope, or where you struggled and someone reached out and helped you, or you were of enough benefit that you reached out, you extended that rope to another person and even to yourself. No one can take that away from you. And you can place those memories back in your heart anytime you need. You can just stay in silence where you are right now. There's nothing that you have to do. Our doing period is done. This is just a being time. Now all we're asked to do is to be. As always, sister, you don't have to change anything. You could stay here as long as you like. But if your body's ready for some movement, maybe start by drawing some deeper breaths through your nose. And if more movement seems to be in order, you could start to reanimate your body with other small movements, maybe wiggling your fingers or your toes. You could start to go bigger anytime you like, rotating your hands at the wrists, your feet at the ankles, or maybe even taking a full body stretch. And then roll over onto either side, find a fetal position. Stay here for 3 or 4 breaths. Just check in, notice how you're feeling. Maybe feel for that sense of full body pulsation. And then if you're inclined, press yourself up into a seated position. It can be any seat. Your eyes could be open or closed. You could do anything you like with your hands. Amazing, courageous work, beautiful technique, and following instructions. I appreciate your energy, your breath, and your practice more than you know. If you're moved to do so, draw your thumbs to the space between your eyebrows. Blessings to you and your family. And that concludes our practice for today. Thank you, friends. I'm Chris. I'm with Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. And this was our Igniting Breathwork practice with the Liberation Heart Opening Meditation. You are doing great. Keep going.